We went from a team of 4 people to being a team of 40 plus people now. Now we're doing multiple 6 figures a month, doing multi-millions of dollars in revenue. Big growth in the business.
All right, I'm back here with Connor Rogers, one of the co-founders of Social Scout, an e-commerce email marketing agency. We were just chatting off camera about the fact that he was able to take a vacation for the first time in a while, and he could fully trust his team. And we just hit a milestone. We placed 9+ people for him, and we're finding a couple more for him. So Connor, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Feel free to briefly introduce yourself.
My name's Connor. I'm one of the co-founders of Social Scout. I do all the operations, the team, the fulfillment sort of stuff, hence why I work very closely with Ben and his team. We're a fastly growing email marketing agency working with e-com businesses, sell D2C products. Work primarily on Klaviyo, using that ESP. And yeah, Ben and his team have helped us place a number of really solid candidates that we feel confident sending our clients to and having, the work and the service be done by them at a very high level.
As far as when we first started working together, it was back in April 2025, about 9-10 months ago. What was kind of like inside of the business? Because I know it was a very different agency then than it is now. You guys have grown a lot, but what was kind of the day-to-day like, but then also the hiring process?
Yeah, when we started with you guys, it was actually for our first account manager. We call them account executives, but same sort of thing, job opening that we had. It was our first position. We knew we needed to get someone good, hence why we used a recruiting agency like you guys. And the business was pretty much, you could barely call it a business. It was more of us just being freelancers, having a high paying job. And through hiring, through building out a team, we were able to transform it into more of a systemized business with teams of people, etc. We went from a team of 4 people, which was when we first hired our first person from Zabota, to being a team of 40 plus people now. So basically a 10X. I think that reflects in our revenue as well. I mean, we were barely doing 6 figures a year when we started working with you guys. And now we're doing multiple 6 figures a month, doing multi-millions of dollars in revenue over the course of a year. Big growth in the business, and really comes down to the ability for us to scale. And that's on the back of good talent and people that we can trust. We're not worried about them as liabilities.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you guys have a strong agency, and it's not just, hey, people we've placed who have the skills. It's also you guys have good leadership and know how to bring out the best in people and have the right type of culture. And we'll talk about the culture in a little bit, but you've hired a lot of roles through us, or a lot of different individuals specifically for that account executive, account manager, kind of strategist type of role, which is typically leading the pod or leading a team of individuals in an e-commerce email marketing agency. What's kind of the biggest difference you've seen with the candidates we're sending over versus maybe some you could find in a LinkedIn job ad, or maybe Upwork or different freelance sites?
We tried to hire on our own, or recruit. I think everyone does at one point, and the quality's night and day. You are getting people who aren't super bought in, aren't super good, just in general aren't great communicators when you try to do it on your own. It's really hard to do it on your own, hence why I know you're going to ask advice to anyone maybe later on, but one of my biggest pieces of advice is, whether it's Ben or someone else, work with a good recruiter, because talent is everything. And yeah, the difference between the candidates you guys show us is first of all, they're really excited. They are interested in these jobs. They want to work. They're very professional. They have prior agency experience, and they're just great communicators, which, in this line of business is everything.
Yeah, definitely when they're client facing and communicating at a high level, where you guys make a really big impact on these e-com brands, retention revenue, right? Or attributed revenue to email and SMS. So it's super, super important to put someone there who can have that consultant frame and be an extension of yourself and your own expertise, right? You don't want pushback for them saying, hey, maybe this person's based somewhere else and maybe they're not as good. You want them to see them as the expert and them actually just be the expert. Tell me a little bit more about the culture there that you guys have at Social Scout, because you've come a long way from the 4-person agency to now 40 individuals there.
Culture is really important, and I feel it's kind of cliche, or just everyone says culture is really important, and you're what is culture? But basically everyone on our team that we've got from you guys, that's come in through other methods, just is really excited about what we're doing. They're bought into the vision. They're really excited by the growth, how many new people they see, and everyone who comes in, they're fun, they're outgoing. We try not to bring in super introverted, low energy people, because our business, our company's very high energy. There's not a lot of ego or bad energy out in the space. And it's just worked really well that we have such a positive culture that people want to work together. They're excited about the new people coming in because everyone knows that everyone who's coming in is really good. I think that's another important part of the culture is when you start to bring in bad people who don't do their job as well, it lowers the energy and it lowers just the bought-inness, I guess you could say, of your A players. And so you want to surround your A players by other A players, and maybe someone's slightly better or slightly worse than someone else, and they're going to be brought up to that level. But an A player with, a bunch of C players around them isn't, a good mix of talent, and it's just going to dilute what good talent you have.
That definitely makes sense. Is there any kind of other closing advice that maybe you'd give to someone who is thinking about hiring, or maybe just an agency owner, e-commerce brand, and in general? Is there any specific advice that you maybe could give them?
Yeah, it just comes back to what I was saying earlier about talent and your willingness to spend money on it. I think talent in every business, but especially agencies where there's such a labor-intensive business model, is everything. I think it's more important than paid ads or acquisition. I think it's more important than your systems. I heard Eddie Malouf say this quote, and it was something like, would you rather have 10 out of 10 systems but 1 out of 10 talent, or 10 out of 10 talent with 1 out of 10 systems? And it's like every time. In the agency model, you need 10 out of 10 talent. If your systems are the best, like if we did SOPs out of everything, but you put a 1 out of 10 person in there, it's just not going to work out. And the client's just going to be like, put me with a shitty freelancer, So talent's everything. Spend a lot of money on talent, work with a recruiter, whether it, again, is Ben or someone else. Like, it will be the best thing for your business, because our growth, the scale that we've achieved in, just a couple of months wouldn't be possible if we had people who were liabilities, who needed to be managed by me. Is the best feeling in the world. I mean, Ben, just before this call, I offered someone a position that your team gave me, last week. Is the best feeling in the world to know that this guy will start and that he's going to need very little direction at all. And I just know he's going to do great, because maybe he doesn't know all of our systems and all of our operations, but he's a very good worker. He's an A player for sure. And he's just going to get in there and figure it all out.
One last thing before we wrap up. I know just before we jumped on and we were chatting about, you being on vacation for the first time in a while.
Yes.
A lot of times in the agency, since it's such a labor intensive business, being a service business, the founders are maybe taking 1, 2, 3 days off a year, maybe family vacation, Christmas, or just major holidays. And so what was that like you're running a business with 40 team members. It takes a lot, right? You're doing multiple six figures a month. Like, what was that like to at least have a little bit of peace back? It may not have been 3 weeks of vacation, but what was it like to have some of that peace back?
It was really weird. Like you said, I haven't taken any time off since we started Social Scout, because again, I've been so involved in the operations. And I'm not saying I'm completely removed, nor do I want to be, but it's a great feeling to just have the confidence to be sitting there on vacation and be like, the team is so good that the business isn't going to fall apart, of me being out of office for a whole week. And again, it just comes down to the people I know we have and their work ethic and the culture. And I'm like, we're totally fine. Like, I can do this. And that was a very big feeling for me.
Well, thanks so much for jumping on today, Connor. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ben.